I run reefers on the old desert routes, border towns, lonely rest stops, long stretches of Highway 666. Most nights blur together, same white lines, same buzzing lights on the dash, but there is one load I still dream about. It started with a sound. I had picked up frozen product near the border. Paperwork looked clean. Weight was a little heavy, but nothing crazy for a full reefer. The night was clear and empty. Just me, the engine, and that steady hum from the refrigerated trailer. A few miles past the last station, I heard it, a dull thud from the back. At first I thought it was just the load shifting. Bad pallet, lazy dock worker, it happens. Then the thud came again, slower, more deliberate, like a fist. I checked my mirrors, nothing behind me but road. No headlights, no shape hugging my bumper. I told myself it was nothing. Turned up the radio, let the static fill the cab. The thud came a third time. This time I felt it through the floor. I swallowed hard and kept driving. Out there, you learn to ignore things. You are alone. No one is coming if something goes wrong. The miles crawled by. The sky over the desert was huge and empty. The highway signs flashed past in the beams of my highlights. Then the reefer unit coughed. A strange stutter, like it was choking. The air in the cab suddenly felt warmer. I glanced at the control panel. The temperature display blinked, then steadied. Inside the trailer, something scraped along the wall. Long, dragging friction, like a crate being pulled. I whispered to myself that it was just the cargo. Frosted boxes sliding, maybe a strap had loosened. But I knew how it sounded when product moved. This was different, slower, intentional. I told myself I would check it at the next pull-off. Except the next exit sign was bent and dark. Just a numberless arrow pointing toward nothing. I stayed on Highway 666. The reefer hummed back to normal. For a while, it was quiet. Too quiet. I found myself leaning forward over the wheel, listening more than watching the road. The radio cut out completely, only static. Even when I changed frequencies, that was when the banging started. Hard, desperate hits on the inside of the doors. Metal rattled. The whole truck jolted. I bit down on a curse. My hands shook on the wheel. Someone is back there. The thought slipped in before I could block it. I knew the stories. Bodies crammed into reefers. Smugglers using clueless truckers as cover. People freezing in the dark, pounding, begging. I stared at the road and kept my speed steady. If I stopped out here, in the middle of nowhere, I would be alone with whatever was in that box. The banging stopped as suddenly as it began. The silence pressed in around me. Then I heard something else. A faint, steady tapping near the front of the trailer. Closer to the cab. Too close. I checked my side mirror again. The reflection showed a sliver of white trailer, black sky, empty shoulder. The tapping kept going, like knuckles brushing metal. Moving along the wall, step by step. I imagined someone feeling their way forward, in total dark, palms flat on the frozen interior, searching. The reefer unit stuttered again. The engine note dipped. The cold inside that box was failing. I pictured them in there, whoever they were, breath steaming, fingers numb, lips cracked. I should stop. I told myself that. Out loud, I should stop. I should open the doors. But another part of me whispered reasons not to. If they were there, someone put them there, someone dangerous. I had seen what happens to drivers who ask the wrong questions. Trucks burned on the side of the road, names that do not get mentioned on the radio. Up ahead, I saw the glow of a tiny pull-off, just a gravel patch with a single busted light. The tapping had reached the front edge of the trailer now. Like whoever was inside was right behind my cab, only a thin wall between us. I slowed and eased onto the shoulder. The truck vibrated as I came to a stop. The night rushed in, huge and hollow. The engine idled. The reefer unit wheezed. For a moment, there was nothing. No tapping, no banging. Just the soft hiss of the desert wind around my mirrors. I sat there with my hands still on the wheel, my throat dry. Then, directly behind me, on the other side of the sleeper wall, someone dragged their fingernails down the metal, slowly, deliberately. The sound sliced through me, long, thin, unbroken. I turned off the engine. The lights died. The world went black, except for the dim safety beacon from the reefer unit. The moment the truck fell quiet, the pounding resumed. Wild now, fists slamming the rear doors, a muffled voice shouted something I could not make out. More than one voice, high, panicked. Foreign words, mixing with choked English. I slipped my flashlight from the door pocket, opened the cab door with shaking fingers. The night air hit me like a wall, dry and cold, alive with invisible insects. I stepped down onto the gravel. The banging grew more frantic when they heard the door. I could not see another vehicle for as far as the beam reached. No patrol lights, no passing cars, just my rig and the dark. Every step toward the back of the truck felt like walking into a decision I could never undo. I rounded the side. The reefer unit rattled overhead. The trailer doors shivered with each hit from the inside. Closer now, I could hear the words, begging, coughing, someone gasping for air that was not there. Help us, please. I reached for the latch. My fingers hovered over the frozen metal. If I open this, I thought, their problem becomes my problem. Whoever is looking for them will start looking for me. The banging slowed, knuckles too bruised to keep going, voices fading. I stood there, caught between fear for them and fear for myself, between doing the right thing and staying alive long enough to deliver my load and go home. In the distance, faint but growing, I saw headlights crest a low hill, a pair of them, moving fast. I dropped my hand from the latch, stumbled back to the cab. The voices rose again when they heard my footsteps retreat. Broken cries, filled with a kind of disbelief that cut deeper than any insult. I climbed back inside and slammed the door, started the engine. The approaching headlights grew brighter, too low and aggressive for a regular car, like armored trucks or heavy pickups with lifted suspensions. I pulled out onto the highway before they reached me. My rig groaned as I forced it back to speed. In the mirror, I saw two dark shapes roar past the pull-off. They did not slow, did not turn toward me. They were hunting something else, or expecting me to do their work for them. The banging in the trailer weakened as I drove. Soon it was only occasional, a single hit, then long silence. The reefer unit steadied again. The temperature lights showed normal. Miles later, at a staffed checkpoint, I was told to park and unlock the doors. Routine inspection. My hands shook as I walked to the back. Two officers waited with flashlights. One of them joked about the heat. I opened the latch, swung the doors wide. Inside, the frozen boxes were stacked in neat rows, straps tight, no gaps, no bodies. The lights cut through white plastic and brand names, nothing else. The officers signed my papers and waved me through. I closed the doors with numb fingers. Back in the cab, I sat for a long time without starting the engine. Listening, there was no banging now, no tapping, just the faint, steady hum of the reefer unit, working perfectly. I tell myself that stress can make the mind invent things, that exhaustion plays tricks. But sometimes, Out on Highway 666, when the night is clear and the road is empty, I hear it again. A slow, distant knocking, coming from the trailer, growing closer, and I find myself checking the mirrors, over and over, waiting to see if this time something finally steps out of the dark and asks me why I never opened the doors. I was deep into a night run when the road turned strange. Highway 666 has long stretches where the desert swallows the sound of your own engine. You start hearing things that might not be real, but that night something was real, too real. I had been driving for hours. The sky was moonless, the air still, the world a black tunnel, my highlights barely touched. Up ahead, the median opened into a wide, sandy divide. Nothing unusual, just desert. But as my lights swept across the low brush, I saw him. A man standing in the middle of the median, perfectly still, facing my truck. I felt my chest tighten. People do not stand out there. Not in that silence, not at that hour. I slowed slightly, telling myself he was a stranded motorist. Maybe he needed help. Maybe he was injured. But the closer I got, the less human he looked. He was not waving, not signaling, just standing, hands at his sides, shoulders stiff. I glanced at the shoulder. No broken vehicle, no smoke, no hazard lights, nothing. The desert around him was empty, clean, undisturbed. I eased off the throttle. My palms were damp on the wheel. By the time I reached his position, my truck crawled. I leaned forward, trying to make sense of him. He turned his head slowly toward me. Just the head, no movement in the body. The glare washed out his face. Only the shape of it was clear, long, sharp features, eyes too deep. He did not blink. Not once. My tires rumbled over the seams in the asphalt. The sound echoed like distant thunder across the desert floor. For a moment, he and I locked on each other. And in that moment, I felt something I cannot shake even now. He had been waiting specifically for me. Then he stepped toward the road. One slow step, then another. I cursed under my breath and accelerated. The truck shuddered as the engine pulled hard. I kept my eyes forward, could not look into the mirror, did not want to see him closer. But after a few seconds, I looked anyway. I could not help it. The median behind me was empty. No man, no shape, no movement. The desert swallowed him whole. I told myself he had stepped back into the brush, hidden in the shadows. But my gut twisted. He had moved too fast, too silently. No crunch of sand, no dust. I tried to shake the thought, focused on the yellow lines, the hum of the tires, the cold breath of the reefer behind me. Then the radio popped with static. A burst of sharp noise that made me jump. A voice broke through, weak, scratched, barely formed. A single word, stop. I grabbed the radio and switched channels, static on every frequency. A low hiss that crawled under my skin. The reefer unit sputtered. The engine coughed. Lights flickered across the dash. The truck felt heavier, like something pressed down on the trailer. Like extra weight had appeared behind me. I checked the mirrors again. Nothing, only darkness, only desert. But the engine strained, the way it strains on a steep grade. Only this part of the highway was flat, dead flat. I felt watched, observed, from a distance I could not measure. I whispered to myself, keep driving, do not stop, do not look. But then, far ahead, I saw something else. Two small points of light on the shoulder, dim, low, too low to be headlights. As I came closer, I saw they were reflectors on a guardrail. Nothing strange about that, except there was a figure sitting on the rail. Same posture, same stillness, facing the oncoming road, facing me. My heart slammed against my ribs. I knew that shape. I knew that impossible stillness. It was the same man. I hit the horn, long and desperate. The blast tore through the silence. He did not move, not even an inch. I swerved slightly to avoid getting too close, kept the truck centered. My breathing came in short, shallow bursts. As I passed him, he turned his head again. Same motion, slow, precise. My mirrors shook from the speed, but I saw enough. His eyes were open, too wide, white catching the faint glow of my lights. Then he leaned forward, hands gripping the rail, as if preparing to stand or to step into the road. I pushed the truck harder. The engine roared. The reefer hummed violently behind me. The mirror showed the rail shrinking into the dark. The man still sitting there, still watching. Miles passed in a blur. I kept waiting for another shape to appear in the median, in the shoulder, in the faint glow of the desert. But the road stayed empty, quiet, still, until I saw the outline of an old gas station ahead. Lights flickering, a single pump, a dusty store with boarded windows. I pulled in, killed the engine. The sudden silence felt unreal, too complete. I stepped out of the cab, my legs weak, the desert air cold enough to sting. The station looked abandoned. Not a sound inside, not a hint of movement. I checked behind my trailer. Nothing. Just my own footsteps in the dust. I walked toward the store window, cupped my hands to see inside. A faint reflection of my face stared back at me, and directly behind that reflection, in the glass, I saw a long shape standing in the dark aisle, perfectly still, facing me. I stumbled backward, heart hammering. The glass went dark again. Only my reflection returned. The door of the store rattled softly, a faint metallic tapping, like someone inside pressed their fingers against it. I hurried back to the cab, started the engine, pulled away fast. The station vanished behind me, swallowed by the night. I drove without stopping until dawn bled into the sky. The desert warmed, the fear eased. But sometimes, in the deep hours of night runs, when the road is silent and the desert is black, I check my mirrors, half expecting to see him sitting on the median again, facing me, waiting. I was running a late route toward the northern stations, hauling a half-loaded reefer that hummed like a heartbeat behind me. The night was stretched thin, black sky, desert silence, only Highway 666 cutting through it like a scar. I had been awake too long. My eyes burned, my thoughts dragged like heavy chains. All I wanted was to clear the last border check and park somewhere quiet until morning. The radio had gone dead hours earlier, only static, only the dry whisper of empty frequencies. Then I saw the lights. A checkpoint ahead. Small, too small, just one booth with a single weak bulb. A lonely shape in the middle of an ocean of sand. I frowned. I knew this route. There should not have been a checkpoint here. Not this far out, not this isolated. Still, the sign on the shoulder flashed, inspection ahead, so I slowed, rolled toward the booth. The gravel crackled under my tires. The reefer unit stuttered once, then steadied. A figure stepped out of the booth, a man in a uniform that looked official enough at first glance, but the cut of it was off. The patches were dark and unmarked, like blank fabric, like placeholders. He raised a hand for me to stop. I set the brake. The cab trembled slightly, as if something heavy had settled on the trailer. He approached slowly. Too slowly, boots crunching on gravel in long, deliberate intervals. When he reached my door, he did not speak. He only stared up at me, his face half in shadow, half washed out by my cab light. His eyes were pale, almost colorless. I lowered the window a few inches, enough to talk, not enough to reach through. He said, "Show me your cargo." His voice was calm, flat, like someone reading from a script they did not believe. I cleared my throat. Is this an official station? I have not seen this one before. He stared at me for a long moment, too long. Then he repeated, "Show me your cargo." A cold shiver crawled down my spine. Behind me, the reefer hummed louder, a vibrating pulse through the frame of the truck. I glanced at my mirrors. No patrol vehicles, no cameras, no other staff, just him and his booth, with the dead light flickering above it. I hesitated. He noticed. His head tilted, a small, unnatural angle, like a puppet waiting for a cue. Then he said something that froze the air in my lungs. "Open the doors, driver." We heard movement inside. I stared at him. What movement? He did not blink. "Your cargo is not stable. We need to see what is making the noise." Behind me, on cue, something thudded inside the trailer. Soft, at first, a dull shift. Then another, heavier, like a pallet tipping. My throat tightened. I knew that sound. I had heard it once before, on another lonely route, on another night that felt too long. I forced myself to speak. I checked the load myself. Everything is strapped. The man leaned closer to my window. His eyes did not look at me anymore. They looked past me, into the sleeper, into the shadows behind my seat. He whispered, "It is still moving." Something in his voice made my hands tremble. Not fear, not authority, just certainty, cold and wrong. Behind my cab, the reefer unit clicked sharply. The temperature alarm flashed. Too warm, too soon. Impossible for how short the run had been. Then I heard tapping, soft, rhythmic, inside the trailer wall, closest to the cab, just like before. Just like the story I never tell anyone. The man stepped back and motioned toward the rear of the truck. Lights of inspection. Follow me. I did not move. Something inside me said, "If you step out, you will not come back into this cab." I started to roll the window up, slowly, cautiously. He placed his hand flat on the glass. Cold skin, pale fingers, too long, too thin. His voice dropped low. "Driver, do not make me open it myself." The reefer thudded again, harder. The entire truck shivered. I stared forward, refusing to look at him. My breath fogged the cab. My heartbeat felt like a hammer in my throat. Then something changed. A sound behind the booth. A distant rumble. A vehicle approaching. The uniformed man stiffened. His head snapped toward the noise with unnatural speed. In the growing glow of headlights, his posture broke, like he had been caught somewhere he should not be. He stepped away from my cab, fast, too fast. He walked backward toward the booth, never turning, never taking his pale eyes off me. Then he slipped inside and shut the door. The bulb above the booth flickered once, twice, went dark. The approaching vehicle pulled into view. An actual patrol truck, real markings, real lights. A real officer stepped out and waved. "Morning check, driver, slow night." I nodded, unable to speak. Behind me, the reefer unit steadied again. The tapping stopped. Silence settled, heavy and absolute. The officer circled my rig, checked the seals, looked around the area. When he returned, he frowned. "Strange. This station is supposed to be closed." He pointed at the booth behind me. "Has been shut down for years. No power, no personnel." I looked. The booth was dark, empty. Dusty windows, no footprints, no sign anyone had stood there at all. The officer waved me through, told me to get some rest. I drove on. The sky slowly brightened behind me, colors creeping into the desert like the world waking from a nightmare. But even now, many runs later, I cannot shake what I saw in my mirror as dawn broke. A faint reflection in the glass of my sleeper door. A pale face, long fingers resting on the inside wall of the reefer, as if someone stood just out of sight, listening, waiting, still tapping softly behind the metal whenever the road turned quiet enough.